Hi and welcome to Cooking with Amanda. Today we will be making herb chicken and potatoes. And right here in front of me I have everything that you're going to need to make your herb chicken and potatoes today. You'll need 3 pans today. You'll need a pot, small pot, to cook your potatoes in, boil them, make them soft inside. You'll need a small pan to cook the potatoes in, and we'll need a larger pan to cook the chicken in. In terms of tools and utensils, today you'll need a knife to cut the potatoes and a spatula or tong to turn the chicken. You can use whichever you're comfortable with. Now when it comes to the potatoes, you may want another spatula or you can use the same, but I've mastered the art of stirring them in the pan. You'll need 1 thawed chicken breast, and thawing is pretty easy and it's not as hard as it seems. You're going to want to put chicken you can use a pan on the stove. You can do it in the microwave, though it's a little bit harder to control. And you can do stuff in between while you're thawing too. So go ahead and just turn it on tap hot. Just rinse out the sink real quick. And let that warm up and put the stopper in. And once it's about this full, or you can mostly submerge the chicken when it lays, it's gonna float. Just leave it in there. About 30 minutes into it, flip it over, make sure the water's still pretty warm. You don't want it too hot because it will start to cook it. And let this sit for about an hour. Now for potatoes, there are many types of potatoes you can use. Yellow, purple perhaps. My favorite is the red potato. Now, these are pretty small ones. Sometimes you have a bigger one. But pretty much 2, size of your hand. That's what I normally do. It cooks well in the pan, and it's not too much, nor is it too little. You will need olive oil to oil your pans when you cook both the chicken and potatoes. I do a splash. This is probably around 1 to 2 tablespoons per pan. So for both the chicken and the potatoes, you'll need the following herbs. Now you can add more, take away, all to your taste, just depends. This is what I use though. I'll use salt, pepper, garlic powder, basil, thyme, chives, and rosemary. And for specifically the chicken, because it'll marinate a bit, I use chopped onions. You can use fresh onions too. Some ground sage, and a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. Now once your chicken is thawed, you're going to start marinating it. Go ahead and open the bag. We will be seasoning it. Now you can do this in any order and as much or as little as you want. It's really personal preference. If you don't have any experience, I'd say, when it comes to the herbs, do perhaps that much. Around, you can guess it, it's probably half a tablespoon. If you want to be precise. I have fun doing it by eye, and once you cook it so much, you end up finding out what you like, what you don't like, and you can just do it by eye. So we're going to add some salt. Not a lot, just a little bit. And then some pepper. I kind of have a method when I do this. I always do salt and pepper and garlic first and then add everything else. So this one can be a little tricky if you have the grinder. Otherwise you can just shake it in. We don't want too much pepper. That's good. A few twists. Not a lot of pepper. We can do garlic powder. Now I like garlic, so I will do quite a lot. However, you may not like garlic as much. It's really personal preference. Now I'm going to add some onions, chopped onions. You can do fresh, you can do these. I do these because it's in a liquid anyway, so it'll start to hydrate them a bit. And they're pretty flavorful. You don't need too many. Now I'll do some sage. You don't need a lot of sage, just a dash or 2. There we go. Now on to basil. Now basil's pretty flavorful. You don't need too much. Like I said, about that much around. If you want to measure it on a spoon, you can. Shaking it, put some rosemary in. You don't want it to be covered, and some will come off when it cooks. Now, thyme, I probably would do maybe that much around. It's pretty flavorful too. That and basil. And chives. Just do some. You already have an oniony flavor from the onions themselves, so you don't need too many chives. When it comes to potatoes, however, you won't be putting the onions on. Well, you could if you wanted to, so it works best there. And last but not least, can't forget, we're going to add the Worcestershire sauce. It's broken. Just a few dots. Go over me. Not a lot. Probably like a teaspoon at max. And once you have done that, go ahead and just take it in your hands and shake it around a bit. There will be some juices from when it thaws, if it's not fresh. If it was a fresh breast, then just go ahead and add a little bit of water, because you want a little bit of liquid in there. And as you're mixing, this also works to tenderize a bit, because you're busy kneading it. And you should be feeling around too for any hard spots. That would be where it's still frozen. It'd be cold too. You want to go ahead and thaw it some more, because you don't want ice on there. It'll make it cook unevenly. So once it's mixed, like that, somewhere out of the way where you'll not be cooking, you can just leave it until your potatoes have boiled. Now, first things first with your potatoes, if you haven't already, go ahead and wash them. It's important to get that dirt and whatever else is on there off of your potatoes. Give them a good rub. And if you touch the chicken while you were putting stuff in for any reason, definitely wash your hands. It's raw meat. Always wash your hands after handling raw meat. Though the only time you really need to touch it, besides putting it in the bag, is taking it out and putting it in the pan, so you shouldn't have too much of a problem. Now, once your chicken, now this is potatoes. Once your potatoes are clean, you can go ahead and cut them. You can do whatever thickness you'd like. I do mine a little thick because after this, we will be putting them in this pan right here to boil. So they will be partially cooked, and when they're fried in the pan, it kind of makes them like crunchy fries in a sense, because these insides will be already cooked and will be soft. So just kind of dice them up a bit, and you can peel it if you want. However, the skin's the most nutritious part of the potato, like the skin of an apple is the most nutritious part. So I leave mine on, and it tastes fine to me. So it's all up to personal preference. Go and chop up this other one real quick. And always be careful when using sharp knives. Wash your hands and your fingers. I have cut myself many a times doing a variety of things when cooking. Always wash. And if you happen to cut yourself, immediately stop and clean the wound and put a band-aid on, or whatever you use. Cover up the wound pretty much and clean it. And then go back to your workstation. If there's any blood, clean it immediately with disinfectant. And if there's any food with it on it, obviously throw that out. Nobody needs to be eating that for their health. And that's all diced. Now once it's diced, fill your pan up about halfway with water. This is a quart pan, I think. It's not a lot. You honestly won't need too much. Just enough to cover, here, there. Just enough to make sure all the potato is submerged once you get it in the pan. Once you have potatoes, you can go ahead and set it to medium high or high and let it boil. Once your potatoes are boiling like this, go ahead and turn off fire. And this pan has a weird handle. Just go ahead and take your pan over to the sink and drain it. Now, unless you're daring like me, you can use a lid, but otherwise, drain the potatoes. You don't have to get all the water out, just get most of it. Any water that goes in the other pan will cook off, it's fine. Just get as much as you can without losing a potato. Okay, I think that's good. Now that your potatoes are drained, go ahead and grab a small pan. Get it ready. First, before you turn the heat on, go ahead and do a splash of olive oil. Tablespoon or two, you don't need too much. Now, go ahead and put the potatoes in. Make sure you get them all out. And spread them pretty evenly. You can use your hands, doesn't matter. Now take your seasonings and go ahead and add them. It's okay if it's clumpy, you'll be mixing it in a second. Just go ahead and season it to your liking. What's important is what you like, not following the recipe exactly. Add some chives. And probably want a little bit more chives in here, especially if you like an oniony flavor, since we're not putting the dried onions in here. But you could if you wanted to. Some thyme. Some basil. Oh, that smells good. And rosemary. Now that's good. Go ahead and turn it to medium-high heat. Let it warm up a bit. I'm going to go ahead and clean up my herbs. And while this is warming up, be sure to watch it. You don't want it to start cooking quite yet, because you need to stir it. Now you hear that sizzle? That means it's starting to cook. So the oil will be warm now. You can do this with a spatula. I prefer to do it this way. Just go ahead and flip it several times. You may make a little bit of a mess, especially if one flies out. But your goal is to get it all mixed in there. And there'll be some on the side, so we're going to get that off. Flip it. And then just let it cook. Now that your potatoes are ready to cook, go ahead and start working on your chicken. Go ahead and turn it also to medium-high heat. And go ahead and add your olive oil. Now we want this pan to be a bit hotter, so we're going to let it warm up before we put the stuff in. Now once the oil is easy to move around, see, we're getting there, you'll be able to put your chicken in. So this just needs a couple more minutes. Now when your oil coats most of the pan, when you move it, you can go ahead and grab your chicken. Now the juice in there is fine to pour in, don't worry about it. Just go ahead, grab your chicken, place it in the pan. It should start to sizzle. And go ahead and pour all that goodness in there. Definitely want it. Now safety is key for your health. See this hand? Gross. Well, go ahead and wash it. Don't hurt anything. The stuff is cooking. Just go ahead and wash your hands. Don't want to get anybody sick or yourself sick. Now the potatoes will cook a lot faster than the chicken, so I had to already turn it down to about medium temperature at this point. Now, after your chicken has cooked for some 7 or 8 minutes or so, or when it starts to brown, as you can see on the top of that chicken, you'll need to check the internal temperature because it's important that the chicken gets at least to 170 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, as you can see there, the chicken is only at 159 at the moment, so it still needs probably a couple more minutes to cook. By now the potatoes have browned and they've cooked nicely. See, they're done. So I'm going to turn them completely off. They can just keep warm. Now I'm going to check the chicken again, and hopefully this time it is at the right temperature. And as you can tell, it's 191. That is more than enough. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the chicken off as well. Now it'll still sizzle quite a lot after you turn the pan off, but that's okay. It'll still cook for a little bit more. Once you're done with your thermometer, always wash it as you should wash it before. Now that your food's done, plate it however you want. I like to kind of keep it a little organized. Nice sizzle. Yeah, look at that. Now you want to let the pans cool for quite some time because they are both quite hot. But you can eat while they cool. So now that it's done, don't forget a healthy amount of ketchup, for me at least, or your favorite sauce, whichever you prefer. And now that your meal's done, you can go ahead and taste it. Let's have a potato. It's got a nice crunch on the outside, but it's still fluffy in the center. Like a good big old steak fry. Yeah. As for the chicken, I'd probably let it rest a few minutes after you plate it, just because it will be hot, but it'll be good. You can taste all those herbs. And the Worcestershire sauce gives it a little bit of flavor. Not overpowering, but enough you can still taste it. Well, that's it for Cooking with Amanda. I hope you enjoyed. I'll put the recipe for everything you need to make this in the description, and you can follow along with the video whenever you want. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And choking on my own spit.